Good morning and welcome to Fox 29's News Now on this Tuesday morning. We're going to get started with some local news for you out of North Philadelphia. Dangerous homemade explosive devices are being sold on the streets as fireworks. Now police have a warning for residents after two children ended up in the hospital. Fox 29's Lauren Johnson has this report.
Hey, good morning. So what's meant to be fun is really becoming explosive, dangerous, and it could be deadly. Also very life-altering for two children we know about, and that's why police are involved in trying to see if charges should be filed. In the first case, police could charge a 9-year-old's father who they say purchased an improvised explosive device off the streets the night before his daughter was injured. Left home alone, she got her hands on it, and police believe she tried to light it when it exploded. Another explosion last week. Now a 15-year-old is still hospitalized at Temple and still suffering after a 7-hour surgery to repair his intestines. The soon-to-be high school sophomore was sitting on a park bench in North Philadelphia when his grandmother says friends thought it would be funny to detonate an explosive device. Nothing about the act or the aftermath has been funny.
He is seriously injured, but his life could have been taken for some joke, and it makes no sense.
These, by definition, are improvised explosive devices. They are not legally purchased, manufactured, or sold in the United States.
They're not stable. As Detective Brooks said, a lot of them are homemade. They're not stable. You don't know when it's going to go off. Just let the professionals do it, because unfortunately, I hate to see anybody have to suffer through this again.
These things can seriously injure. You can use a limb, you can lose your life. They're no joke.
Bomb experts say heat, shock, or even friction can set one of these devices off, and before you know it, life just is not the same. And because there is no quality assurance and they're not legally manufactured, buyer beware, they warn, but the best bet is just not to purchase these. Also, last month, a 17-year-old suffered at the hands of a homemade personal device. So police have not yet told us if any charges will be filed in these latest two incidents, but they are still looking into those details. And as soon as we know, we'll pass that information along.
And more in local news this morning in Cape May County. Later this morning, we should learn if it's safe to go back in the ocean in Wildwood Crest, New Jersey. Fox 29's Bill Anderson has the latest.
That's the hope. We're hoping that we'll get some sort of announcement. But as you can see, actually right now, there goes the Wildwood Crest police going by. They have been patrolling throughout the morning, making sure people are not going into the water. If you look a little bit further, this is what people are finding when they try to come down to the beach. This is the lifeguard stand and the notices that continue posted telling people they have to stay out of the water. So how much of an impact is this having? I actually took our Skyfox drone in the air so that you can see the stretch of beach that's impacted here in Wildwood Crest. It started yesterday afternoon when the Cape May County Health Department shut down ocean access for about a mile between East Jefferson and Miami Avenues. Now, they continue to say there's no need to be alarmed. They're just being cautious after they discovered a malfunction at the wastewater treatment plant, which pumps treated water back into the ocean. People are and were allowed on the beach, but asked to stay out of the ocean while the testing continues. So were people upset about having to get out of the water? Most of the people we talked to actually appreciated the heads up and the way officials handled the situation.
I was busy reading, so I fell asleep, and then when I woke up, found out that there wasn't going to be anybody in the water because of the condition, but I'm not too worried. I don't think anybody wants to get sick, especially on vacation, so as long as they were ahead of the issue, then we're good.
Now, the issue here, guys, is that they're not supposed to have lifeguards even on duty until 10, so it's not an official issue as of this moment. You're not supposed to be in the water anyway. So the hope is that there will be some sort of an update prior to that time. That's what they continue to tell us. But as for now, here in Wildwood Crest, bunch of people are out, bunch of people walking on the beach, but so far not allowed back in the water still.
And more in local news this morning. One man is dead and another is in critical condition after a shooting in West Philadelphia. It happened around 9:30 last night on the 5400 block of Delancey Street. A 27-year-old man and a 50-year-old man were both shot multiple times, and they were rushed to Penn Presbyterian Medical Center, where the 27-year-old died. So far, no arrests have been made. And happening today, crews will demolish a family's East Mount Airy home after a truck driver slammed into it, causing a partial building collapse. Surveillance video shows the truck first striking a small car, then barreling into 60 East Pleasant Street, where homeowner Sandra Garrett and her son were inside sleeping at the time. Luckily, neither of them were injured.
I just heard this a loud noise like a boom or a bang, and I was like, oh my God. And I ran to the front, the next room, which is the front that collapsed, and I saw the back of the truck sticking out. So I said, oh my God.
Neither driver was cited in the incident. Residents say the neighborhood needs four-way stop signs to slow down the traffic. A spokesperson for the streets department says the area doesn't have enough traffic for signs, but after this incident, they're reevaluating the situation. And we have more information for you this morning on a story we told you about yesterday out of North Philadelphia. A crowd of nearly 1,000 people out on Jefferson Street for a free cookout, and some got out of control, according to police. 6 police cruisers were damaged and streets were left trashed. And some, like Chase LaValle, found his Hyundai Santa Fe damaged, the hood dented and the roof nearly caved in.
Just upset, honestly. I was really mad about it, just because I don't want my car to be damaged just for something stupid like dancing on your car.
No arrests have been made at this time. And in Bucks County, police in Lower Southampton Township are looking for a man they call the War and Peace Bandit, after he tried to make off from an Acme with Axe and Dove soap products. Police say the man ran from the store, leaving the items behind after he realized he was being watched. If you recognize him, you're urged to contact police. And new developments in New Jersey's Bridgegate scandal after a federal judge ordered former Chris Christie ally Bill Baroni to be released from prison. This pending his appeal before the U.S. Supreme Court. Baroni had been serving an 18-month sentencing. Baroni and fellow former Christie aide Bridget Kelly were convicted in 2016 on several counts of fraud and civil rights violations for closing lanes on the George Washington Bridge for days as a form of political revenge. Kelly was due to start her 13-month sentence this month. And the new month of July brings new laws in the state of Delaware. It's now a little harder to buy cigarettes in the state. The legal smoking age has been raised from 18 to 21. Underage drinking is now just a civil offense rather than a crime. Lawmakers also expanded the decriminalization of marijuana to cover juveniles as well as adults.
I think that's a good way of evolving so that younger kids aren't in jail and don't get caught up with the justice system and that affect them getting jobs in the future and stuff like that.
Other changes include a change in the state's minimum wage and a law that will largely ban retailers from using single-use plastic bags. And more in local news this morning, federal regulators may soon investigate rubber flooring that's typically found in schools. This after U.S. Senator Cory Booker sent a letter to the EPA asking them to look into potentially hazardous mercury levels that may come from the floors. You may remember back in April, several schools in Washington Township, Gloucester County, shut down gym activities because of those mercury concerns. The floors are commonly found in schools, gymnasiums, community centers, even hospitals. And happening today, Philly's own Patti LuPone will be honored during the Wawa Welcome America Festival. A portion of Broad Street between Spruce and Locust Streets will be renamed as Patti LaBelle Way. The dedication will take place at 4 this afternoon. And come and get your free hoagies because it is Wawa's National Hoagie Day. The event, now in its 27th year, is a way to honor the troops. Stop by the event at 5th and Arch Streets in Old City from noon to 2 to get your free hoagie. That's where Fox 29's Jen Frederick will be live on Good Day all this morning. And moving on to your Fox 29 Weather Authority. The Philadelphia area is slated for a hot, hazy, and humid Tuesday with isolated thunderstorms. Those pop-up thunderstorms are expected to develop this afternoon and evening, and afternoon thunderstorms are also expected tomorrow. The threat of those scattered storms, including on the 4th of July holiday, continues through Sunday of this week, unfortunately, with temperatures forecasted to stay in the low 90s and upper 80s for the majority of this week. As for right now, here's a look at current temperatures in our area. Only 72 degrees up in Mount Pocono, nearly 80 degrees over in Lancaster, and we're already at the 80 degree mark here in Philadelphia. And just 2 degrees shy of that over in Wildwood, New Jersey. And looking ahead to your 7-day forecast, again, we're back to the 90s this week as we begin our second heat wave of the summer. And those pop-up storms, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, yes, still a chance on Sunday, which all will hopefully clear out by the time we get to Monday, which as of this moment looks to be clearing and nice and a reasonable, not oppressive 85 degrees. And don't forget to download the latest version of the Fox 29 Weather Authority app to have the latest forecast right at your fingertips. And moving on to political news this morning. While Congress is on July 4th recess, some members have traveled to the southern border this week to see if the immigration crisis firsthand. And emotions are at a boiling point. There are accusations of poor living conditions that border officials say are just not true. Fox News correspondent Garrett Tenney has more from Washington.
This week to see the immigration crisis firsthand, and emotions are at a boiling point.
Well, this morning there are accusations of poor living conditions that border officials say are just not true. Let's get to Garrett Tenney in Washington this morning with that story. Good morning to you, Garrett.
Thomas and Alex, good morning to you. By all accounts, tensions are sky high on this trip, with members of Congress accusing Border Patrol agents of inhumane treatment, unsanitary conditions, and disrespectful posts on social media.
Members of Congress came to Texas to tour detention facilities at the border and quickly turned up the heat.
These women were being told by CBP officers to drink out of the toilet. They were drinking water out of the toilet, and that was them knowing a congressional visit was coming.
New York's Democratic Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has been a longtime critic of border operations, in the past calling for ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, to be abolished. But border agents say these are not long-term care facilities.
We find ourselves today doing the best we can, and I can tell you that that is providing the essential meals, the essential hygiene products, the essential bathing schedules for these folks that we have that are coming into our custody.
But border officials may have a credibility crisis to contend with as well. A private Facebook group with disrespectful posts and pictures targeting migrants surfaced yesterday, but it's not clear who was doing the posting.
Yes, there was a lot of people on that Facebook page, but people need to understand it's a small group that's commenting, and we don't know how many of those individuals are actually agents.
Back at the border, Republican Senator Ted Cruz was supportive of agents and officials and says there is only one way out of all of this.
The way to solve it is enforce the laws, and that means ending catch and release and not encouraging illegal immigration.
Customs and Border Protection is launching an investigation of that Facebook group that we mentioned. And yesterday, the chief called the controversial post completely inappropriate, and she vowed to hold any agents involved in that private webpage to hold them responsible. Alex and Thomas.
A lot of derogatory remarks made, a lot of back and forth this morning. This also comes, Garrett, of another death this week at the border.
Yeah, it does. That's right. And that's something that is going to continue to bring the crisis at the border into the spotlight, the conditions there as well. Members of Congress are vowing to look into more of these facilities, but U.S. officials are hoping that these conditions will improve because yesterday President Trump signed an emergency aid bill that gives some $4 billion to these agencies that are struggling to deal with the more than 100,000 migrants crossing the border each of the last few months. So they're hoping things will improve over the next few months as that money starts to work its way down to these agencies.
As we've seen, no easy solution. This is certainly far from over. Garrett Tenney this morning. Garrett, thank you.
A family's trip to the beach took a dramatic turn when a father noticed something was lurking in the
And more from Good Day this morning. We dive into consumer news with the latest from Samsung.
We'll have more on that coming up in a bit. Get ready. Samsung says a big product launch is coming on August 7th.
And there's a lot of speculation about what it might be for because, Deirdre, well, the last time they brought out a cell phone, the folding one, it didn't quite work out so well, did it?
Yeah, that Galaxy Fold was a mess. There's no other way to say it. And that came out this spring. So Samsung does have a very high bar to hit if they want people talking about how cool and edgy their product is versus what a disaster it is. So that folding phone that was released in the spring, that was really meant to be a concept phone, but it was pretty cool, bigger screen, you folded it. So in theory, it was a good idea, but it cracked, it broke, and at $2,000 a pop, well, if you're going to pay that for a phone, it better be amazing, perfect, and work. Exactly. Now, this one is called the Galaxy Note 10. So the big unveil, the big release is in Brooklyn in New York, August 7th. And there's two features that seem to be the buzziest among the tech community. So one is a stylus, so basically a pen, and the other is this amazing, supposedly, camera that a lot of people are very excited about. And in this Instagram generation, when people want to take selfies, want to take photos, want to even work on film sometimes, this seems to be more important to consumers. From an investor standpoint, people are going to be paying attention because the idea is usually that Samsung does go out and create interesting products and interesting features, and Apple kind of waits for Samsung to make a lot of mistakes, then simplifies, perfects it, and puts out something that's just a little bit simpler and easier to use. So investors will be watching that, this kind of rivalry that happens on and off. For the moment, Apple stock looks to open higher pre-market as well. Alex and Thomas.
Yeah, Samsung usually ahead of that curve, if you will, but you have to look back just at the folding phone itself and the number of delays on so many products. Are they going to have a hard time? Because they admit it, that they messed up, they rushed this product out. Are they going to have a hard time regaining consumer confidence?
I think so, and it's probably an image thing as well. The other thing that they are constantly fighting Apple with, people call it the halo effect, but some more blunt tech bloggers will just say it's an addiction. If you have an iPhone, chances are you have a Mac, you have an iPad. You're addicted to that operating system, and that's always part of what Samsung is fighting as well. So with this new Galaxy Note 10, there is an attempt apparently at Samsung making its operating system a little bit more sticky, as analysts say, in an attempt to keep people a little bit more under its umbrella versus changing to Apple.
If you're addicted to technology, you'll take the chance.
You certainly will.
That's right.
Everyone wants to be the one who has the latest phone,
Yeah.
right? Seems like you see that so often,
Yeah.
but we'll see with this case. Okay, thank you so much, Deirdre. Okay, let's get to Manioc
All right.
because Jen.
And more from Good Day this morning. We have a warning from police ahead of this 4th of July holiday regarding dangerous devices sold as fireworks. Here's our Alex Holly with more.
7:33, there's a warning from law enforcement this morning ahead of the 4th of July holiday. Dangerous devices are being sold on the streets as fireworks, but they are not fireworks.
In at least 2 cases, the devices sent children to the hospital recently. Yesterday, we told you about a 9-year-old girl who lost several fingers after finding what she thought were fireworks in her home. Police believe that she lit them up and they exploded in her hands. This happened on Sunday in Kensington. She's still in the hospital this morning.
Not the only case. 15-year-old Taiji Baker also in the hospital after someone detonated an M1000 explosive device under a park bench he was sitting on in North Philadelphia. He suffered serious injuries to his intestines and second-degree burns. It's not clear if the devices that went off between the 2 children here are the same. But now police and loved ones, they want everyone to be on alert.
These things can seriously injure. You can use a limb, you can lose your life. They're no joke.
Police say these devices are very sensitive to heat, shock, and friction. Again, both kids are still in the hospital. And also last month, in a third incident, a 17-year-old suffered injuries at the hands of a homemade device.
Joining us this morning to talk about the devices are Detective Tim Brooks and Don Robinson, who is the special agent in charge of ATF. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. How are you?
First of all, I'm doing well. I want to talk about this 9-year-old because you saw the images. How is she doing?
She's doing pretty good. I mean, all things considering. As Captain Bergman said yesterday, these are life-altering injuries that she has. The injuries are pretty grotesque.
And so what do we know happened as far as the father purchased these on the street and happened to detonate one and then he just left the other on the counter?
That's our knowledge, and that's still an ongoing investigation about what exactly went on. What's important about it is that these aren't fireworks, and people think they are. They're purchasing like they are, but they're in no way, shape, or form.
So when we talk about what they're purchasing, you have examples here.
We do.
And these are, what are they called on the street?
They're referred to a number of names, M100s, M1000s. There's no standard. These are all illegally made. They're not, made in some, factory under, conditions that are, a manufacturer would have. These are, some clown in a basement making the stuff himself. The mixtures, the explosive mixtures are all homemade.
Because they're not legally purchased or sold
They're not.
in the United States.
There are consumer-grade fireworks that are out there. They're regulated by the CPSC, the Consumer Product Safety Commission. They're safe and are legal in a number of states to sell. But these are illegal devices themselves.
And the reason why it's also concerning is because they're not regulated. They could, without being someone lighting them, they can still go off by friction? Or
Yeah, the mixtures that are used in these devices are very shock and friction sensitive. So, we investigate accidents all the time. The bomb squad, we've got an arson explosive task force here in Philly. It's ATF, Philadelphia Police Department, Philadelphia Fire Marshal's Office from the fire department. And we respond to these things all the time. ATF responds to these. There's accidents. The friction from static electricity is enough to set this off. The mixtures in these devices will detonate unconfined. So if you have a pile of this stuff and it's ignited, some sort of ignition source is introduced, it'll explode on its own. So we're not talking about burns, we're talking about an explosion and serious injuries.
We saw the damage to the park bench. It was a metal park bench. So a typical firecracker has about 50 milligrams of powder in it, and these typically have about 100, 150.
There's no... Yeah, these devices, they have a lot. Whatever they can fit in there.
They'll place it in there.
Put it in there.
So what's the intent here? These people are making them in their basement, and then they're trying to pass them off, trying to get a quick buck as a firework?
Yeah, they put them out there like they're fireworks, and, with some people, the bigger the better. And that's not necessarily true because of the danger behind these. Like Don mentioned, these aren't regulated, so you don't know what you're getting in there. And there's no quality control. They're not made in a factory. Most of them are made in basements and illegal manufacturing facilities. So you could get some quality items that are inside that aren't consistent with normal consumer-grade fireworks. And just those alone can set these devices off.
And of course, this is always an increased concern during this time of year when the
is.
holidays coming and people want to have their own fun.
It's really kind of depressing. I started out as an agent here in Philly and worked a case over in Camden in the 90s, 20 years ago. And same thing, a female got a hold of one of these, lit it at a stove, and she lost fingers. She was blinded in one eye. It's just like we don't learn from our mistakes. These are not fireworks. They're not firecrackers. They're illegal explosive devices. They cause a lot of damage, a lot of injury. And these 3 kids that have recently been injured are all you need to see.
Life has changed forever. It's important to point out not just dangerous, but you could be prosecuted for having one of these.
Absolutely. Federal and state statutes prohibit these devices and the manufacture of them.
So how is it punishable by what? What kind
Up to 10 years.
10 years.
It's explosives, so it falls under the Explosives Control Act under federal statutes, and the state has laws against it also. So that's what that task force is for. And unfortunately at this time of year, we see more and more of these, and kids and adults are subject to the injuries.
The warning is out there. Tim Brooks, Don Robinson, appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you. Sure. Thank you for the reminder. We're going to take a break and we'll be back.
And more on Good Day this morning. Authorities say E. coli bacteria encountered at the San Diego County Fair has left 1 child dead and 3 others sickened. A Friday night release from the San Diego County Health and Human Services Agency announced 4 confirmed cases linked to animal contact. Dr. Mike joined Good Day this morning to discuss.
Well, we know 1 child is dead and 3 others are recovering after what happened after going to a petting zoo. Yeah, they contracted E. coli at a San Diego County fair. So the question is, what is the organism and why is it so dangerous? What's happening at these petting zoos? Because they're so popular for kids.
Yeah, and just hearing about this, let's get right to Dr. Mike. So what exactly do we know about this? It's E. coli, right?
Right, and E. coli, Escherichia coli, is a bacteria everywhere on the planet, but there are certain types of E. coli that can be very dangerous. These are called Shiga toxin producing E. coli. So you have a child, go to the petting zoo, they don't wash their hands, they don't do it right, they get it in their mouth, and then you can get very sick. They can develop kidney failure. It's called hemolytic uremic syndrome, leading to kidney failure. You can bleed, you can have a stroke, and unfortunately about 3 to 5% of these kids die. So that all being said, what do you do? Now, I have a couple of tips that I want everyone to remember. I'm not against petting zoos. In fact, I live near Lynn Villa Orchards, a wonderful time. Kids didn't get sick, but you have to do the following. Number 1, you have to wash your hands. All right, wash your hands after they touch any animals. Number 2, keep food and animals separate. No one brings their ice cream cone into the petting zoo. It's a recipe for disaster. And then finally, if you have a child, they like to put everything in their mouth, keep them supervised.
All right, so let's rewind just a little bit. We're talking about E. coli here in petting. Is this from the feces from the animal?
Right, it's poo. And what you do is, if you touch the animal and then you get it in your mouth, studies have shown it only takes about 7 to 10 bacteria to cause illness. And so if you're a child out there, have a wonderful time, but make sure that there is soap and water primarily around, and secondly, if not, an alcohol-based hand wiping
I was going to say,
apparatus.
usually they have stations, but it usually is the alcohol, hand wiping, or it's the Purell or hand sanitizer.
Right, and you just have to be a parent. You have to supervise those kids because they like to put things in their
Real
mouth.
quick,
like
yeah. I mean, just like that. What's alarming here is, I mean, we're talking about, as far as exposure, a couple of days before you actually see symptoms, right?
Well, it can be a couple of days, and my advice to everyone out there, number 1, if your child develops fever, diarrhea, especially bloody diarrhea, you get them right away to see a healthcare provider.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Something to think about. I mean,
It
you go
is.
out there, your kid's pet, right away, wash those hands. Get some.
It's a good time. You don't expect things to happen. But I teach the students at Penn all the time, disease will grab you in the butt when you least expect it.
Not just at the petting zoos, though, also when they're in the park and running around and you have dogs out there, and it's just, you never know what they're getting into.
All it takes is one event.
Thank you, Dr. Mike.
Good to see you.
I love you. Look how good you look. Oh, my God. Who's your doctor?
He keeps me healthy. You
are.
are. You are.
Are you wearing your T-shirt that says "Body" by Dr. Mike?
Yes. It's a mess under this. Thanks, Mike.
And that is going to do it for us today at Fox 29's News Now. Be sure to catch us again tomorrow, same time, same place, 10 a.m. And be sure to follow Fox 29 at fox29.com, as well as our mobile app. And be sure to follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for all the latest breaking news. And thank you for joining us.